What are the environmental issues, how they are impacting our body, our organs? There are multiple other pollutions which are invisible and we can't even see them and we don't realize.
Overall, what we breathe is what we absorb. Two broad categories. One is air pollution as a large, and the second is the plastic pollution at large. Plastic does not disintegrate or degrade in the environment for over 100 years. You throw a plastic bag today, it will still be in our environment for 100 years plus. Every bottle of plastic water you're having microplastic going into your body. This is the number one cause of death worldwide. There are 5.5 million people dying. It causes women to have highest rate of infertility. It destroys not only the ovaries, but even the sperm count in small children.
What are the environmental issues, how they are impacting our body, our organs, and how they are leading to a certain deficiency or a problem in our next generation? How those typical pollutions are coming across to us. Many of them are very visible. Let's say, so Delhi's polluted air is something which is visible to all of us, measurable even. But there are multiple other pollutions which are invisible and we can't even see them and we don't realize.
Two broad categories. One is air pollution as a large, and the second is the plastic pollution at large. So first beginning and concentrating on the air pollution, I think very often the celebrated rascal culprit is PM 2.5 or PM5. But that's just one amongst the many thieves, so to say, in the gang which comprise and make air pollution. So you're talking of particulate matter, you're talking of smoke, you're talking of volatile organic compounds, you're talking of toxic carcinogens, you're talking of toxic gases, you're talking of particulate matter, which is apart from these substances called as hydrofluorocarbons, pre-carcinogens, carcinogens, and then it comes to various gases like methane, NOx, SOx. Overall, what we breathe is what we absorb. So the impact first is on the lungs, upper airway and lower airway, which is the lungs, and then it goes all over.
How bad air we have? You talked about so many, I think culprits, and you have very well given an imagery.
PM 2.5 is one amongst the particulate matter which seeps down lower, but PM1, that means sub-micron level, can go even further down into the smaller little airways, or what we call it the alveolar sacs of the lung. What all these compounds overall do is it brings your lungs and other organs into a stage of inflammation. Acute inflammation, acute on chronic, and then chronic inflammation. What does this do in the body? So it's the number one cause of lung cancers, brain cancers, cancer of the pancreas, cancer of the stomach, CA breast, cancer of the genitourinary tracts, and so on, cancer of the kidneys. Apart from this, it involves the brain. You can have strokes, you can have cardiovascular events, you can have metabolic dysfunction, obesity, hypertension, arrhythmias, indeed cardiac arrests. There are studies now which have shown a 10% increase in PM 2.5 gives you a twofold increase in cardiac events. It has shown 1% increase in PM 2.5 has a direct correlation to 4% increase in mortality. 5% increase gives you 8% increase in mortality. And what we are seeing in AQI in Delhi, today's newspaper read that Delhi is the second most polluted city in India. That's not a good tag.
So we have been holding this, I think, feather or so the distinction for quite some time. Yeah, dubious distinction.
Yeah, so the only way to address this problem is to identify it, is to recognize it. And you got to address this shamelessly. You have to hold the people responsible. You have to bring policy decisions. You have to take, I would even go to the extent of saying this is the number one cause of death worldwide. There are 5.5 million people dying because of air pollution annually all over the world, out of which 2 to 2.5 million are dying in India directly because of air pollution.
2.5 million?
In India only, every year. That means we are having multiple COVID-like deaths every year.
25 lakh.
Every year. And largely this is preventable. So why are we not preventing it? We are allowing this generation to suffer and die. People in Delhi are losing up to 8 to 10 years of your adult life. That means instead of dying at 80, you may die at 70. Instead of 90, then at 80. That's not fair. You're allowing the next generation, that means the smaller children, to die. You're allowing small kids to have diabetes and hypertension when they grow up. You're allowing the fetuses to be harmed in utero. That's not fair. Then why are we living? What are we living for?
So today's pollution can harm up to how many generations?
Many generations down, because it damages your genome. It damages your DNA. These are published studies. Sometimes people say, oh, these are all Western studies. And I've researched this so thoroughly, there are more than 150 Indian-based studies in which they've done multicentric trials across 26 cities all over India, 9 cities all over India. It's all published in Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, British Medical Journal, ICMR details. This is all available. I will very strongly request the government to have a separate ministry to combat air pollution. This cannot be done just by the way. And you need proper scientists, you need researchers, you need doctors, you need environmentalists who are a part of the decision-making cycle.
But there are multiple task forces, there is which are taking up the cause, trying to coordinate with multiple.
Position without responsibility and not giving results is no position. This is not a time in which we need newspaper headlines. This is now a time to implement the policies and be strictly enforcing decisions and punish the people who are guilty. Why are there farm fires still burning in Punjab? And we talk about air pollution only in the winter months. Air pollution is happening 24/7, 365 days a year. People are dying even in summer. Yeah. Why are we allowing this to happen to ourselves? So it can be industrial pollution, it can be road traffic pollution, it can be road dust, it can be construction norms, it can be farm fires, any source. We cannot bring pollution down to zero, but we can substantially decrease it. And our aim must be and should be, and it has to be towards that.
So recently you have seen a flurry of action in Delhi, especially the most recent one of deregistering the cars which have reached to their so-called end of life, which are 10-year-old for petrol or 15-year-old for diesel. And then you also saw some of the government took back that action, and then that has stopped that. We saw they're being denied for the fuel in the petrol pump or being impounded. How do you see the actions like this, or maybe for that matter, the sprinklers being deployed, or the other activities which has happened over the period, odd and even for that matter? How much of that really helps, or we require something more comprehensive, more systemic? What should be the way forward, and are we going on the right direction? Even if slow, are these things going to help?
Okay. So, with your permission, just before we come to, the cars issues and the registration and the emission norms and so on, just a quick word on something which we call as black carbon. And black carbon is precipitated basically through your emissions from the cars. And the second is plastic. And a quick word on plastic, which is extremely important, is poorly understood, widely rampant, killing us every day. Simple tagline. Plastic.
Can you repeat it again?
Plastic kills us every day. It's rampantly increasing. It is there all over, and we fail to address this issue. Plastic does not disintegrate or degrade in the environment for over 100 years. You throw a plastic bag today, it will still be in our environment for 100 years plus. You see the beaches, you see the forests, you see the roadsides, it's plastic. We are living in a plastic world. We cannot decrease it to zero, but we can definitely do a lot to decrease the damage and decrease the use of plastic. Plastic enters the body mainly through ingestion or contact. It dissolves.
Even the
contact through the skin. And it is absorbed in the body, and it forms into small fibers, what we call as microplastic. which is less than 5 microns, and then nanoplastic less than 1 microns. Plastic has more than 75 toxins, including resins, including carcinogens. But the 4 disastrous ones are what we call as bisphenol A, what we call as BPA, phthalates, what we call as DHP. Third is called as antimony, and fourth is called as formaldehyde. These are the ingredients which are used in paint, which we use on the walls, on the wiring of electrical wiring of the tubings, and the exhaust which come from the cars. These are resins. These are carcinogens. What do they do in the body? 9 different types of cancers, established, proven, researched, published. It causes women to have highest rate of infertility. It destroys not only the ovaries, but even the sperm count in small children. Causes of infertility are actually one of the causes is plastic pollution. It causes damage to the brain, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, you name the organ and plastic hits it. Worst of all, it is called as an endocrine disruptor. It is anti-estrogen. So your receptor in the body, which is used when estrogen is released, plastic comes and takes that place. So it's anti-estrogen. Estrogen cannot act in the body. Estrogen is required in the body. So all your hormonal defects, your cardiorespiratory metabolic defects are because of plastic.
And at the same time, it will also have impact on mental health because of
hugely. Cognitive dysfunction, low IQ, attention span. Children are suffering because of plastic.
So can we also connect the lot of increasing incidence of ADHD or all that?
Hugely. And there is data on this. You're absolutely right. You're spot on. Like I said, we need a ministry to combat pollution, air pollution and plastic pollution. This cannot be one minister managing 6 portfolios, out of which one of them is trying to combat pollution.
But for plastic, even the Prime Minister took this very strongly, and we announced that, there will no single-use plastic, and there is a whole the government initiative, focus, regulation.
So let me hold this up. And the best thing which is in this podcast is that water is served in a glass. It is not in a plastic bottle. So there are studies to show that PET bottles, which is plastic bottles, has a direct leaching effect. Higher the environmental temperature, greater the leaching of plastic from the bottle container into the liquid. Longer it stays, in terms of exposure, greater the leaching effect. So every bottle of plastic water you're having microplastic going into your body.
So if a PET bottle which has water and which is exposed to higher temperature, which is possible during
all over India,
transport, during storage and all that, it is emitting certain kind of...
As 100% proven fact.
So it is not that the plastic bottle itself is a cause of a big pollution, because many of the companies now prove or claim that they are doing a lot of recycling and they are able to pick back all the bottles, or let's say 90% of the bottle, and recycling them to ensure that there is no, bottles lying and scattering them.
Yeah, but the core issue still remains the same.
Yeah. So that's yours. That means even if you are discarding or recycling your PET bottles very well,
you're still
health damage is there.
Plastic leaching into the water. And these studies have been done not on one make. I'm not taking the name of the makes, but not one make, but at least 10 different makes. And these studies have been done in India. You have higher level of phthalates. They have even done post-mortem reports to show microplastic and nanoplastic in the brain, in your coronary arteries. Your heart attacks are not only because of lipids or a blockage as a blood clot because of lifestyle. It is because of plastic style.